What up? It's your boy T-Bear Reaction. Today is Wrestling Wednesday. About to check out a video that was requested by one of my followers. Taekwon. I mean, he even knows some of the comments. He always finds a way. Cause I guess he has. I don't know if it's an issue. He always get on me about my whole face thing and everything. I'm just trying to be a good guy. That's all I am. I ain't trying to go fall into the dark side like everybody else. Not me. That's another story. But yeah, I'm all about the good guys. Was heroes, faces, babyfaces, and or give anti-heroes a slack because they still roll with us no matter. They have different morals. They still on our side regardless. You know what I'm saying? That's sometimes the tweeners or some babyfaces who go to anti-hero route and everything, but never. I know people say never say no, but I'm fighting this to the end. Never will go to the dark side where it's just the hill, the villains, none of that. I don't do that. I don't know nobody thinking out so much up with that. That being said, this will be a lovely video for me anyway. This is awesome pro wrestling face turns. You know me and faces. That's why I live for the baby faces. All right. Reason why I go hard for the baby so much because they don't get as much love no more. It's like, and to me, it's like not a great message to folks that faces, that good guys don't prevail. It's like they don't want good guys to prevail anymore. I'm sorry, good guys still prevail no matter what. We saw recently with Ryson Perez winning the NXT Championship. And found out it was all because of an unfortunate situation. Good, despite her current alignment, hopefully everything works out for Mandy Rose as well too. And again, RIP the Twitch. We say lost him or anything, but back to wrestling. Good guy prevail. We got NXT champion. Tag champion is a face. The current NXT champion is a face. The women's champion is now a face. The women's tag champion is currently face. Even though folks keep questioning that. Wesley, North American champion, face, and for the main roster, we got only one face champion right now. That's Bianca Belair. Hopefully, we get some more face chances in the main roster soon. And everything though, but like I always say, one is better than none. But anyway, and we have some good face turns that happen. We have Seth Rollins turn is I think somewhat turn face. I don't know the situation with Bobby. I feel like he's tweeting right now. Who knows? Some other face turns happen as well too. And my favorite dude is a face right now. That's just the Acclaim as well too, because everybody loves the Acclaim, so why not? Hopefully some more face turns come soon for some of my favorite, some ones I want to root for, but I can't because they're on the dark side. I don't roll with the dark side, but that's another story. Let's get to these awesome pro wrestling face turns, because everybody talk about heel turns or anything, tail turn to that, but face turn is where it's at. It's always going to be where it's at. It's going to be the refreshing moment when your favorite turn face. And for those like me who want to root for the good guys, when wrestlers you want to root for the turn face, it's such a relief. It's such freedom to be happy they're on your side now. They side with us. That's why I'm hoping we have a face hurt business. Even they anti-hero badasses, I still want to face hurt business so I can root for them, because them being here was a stressful moment for me in wrestling fandom, to the point I almost want to quit because folks was getting a real idea about me and all that, or trying me, whatever. That's another story. Let's get into these awesome pro wrestling babyface turns. Let's get it.
Recently, we looked at a few heel turns in pro wrestling that I thought were pretty well executed. You get that moment of sudden impact with a lot of heel turns. Some have been built up over time, like Shawn Michaels turning on Marty Jannetty. Some are quite sudden and out of nowhere, like Seth Rollins turning on his Shield buddies. But most of the...
he turned face recently. It's still a sad moment when he did that.
Time you get that...
And speaking of one where the now tribal queef... Yeah, that too, but...
One sudden moment where the turn has been solidified, and those moments can truly make history.
Yeah,
we always remember those awesome heel turns. On the flip side, when a villain begins fighting the good fight, sometimes we don't get those sudden moments. Babyface turns traditionally are built up over time, and sometimes it just happens when a heel starts wrestling other heels on television. The babyface turn can sometimes happen without much fanfare, and I think the shock of the heel turn is a much more effective piece of business.
Of course he would.
favorites. That being said, we may miss out on those surprising moments when a wrestler turns babyface, but some babyface turns in wrestling are very, very significant. You look through the history of pro wrestling and you'll see that most, not all, but most main eventers were heels at one point or another. So today, I want to take a look at a few significant or noteworthy babyface turns in wrestling that...
A lot of them was one I was hoping, and a couple of them they sure was ones I'll talk about that I was hoping they turned face, so I root for them. That was definitely, if they count them, I'm definitely missing it.
Went down well with audiences. They may not be as shocking as a good old heel turn, but these turns were still pretty significant on the grand scale.
You know, I'm already not liking this guy. He's like he don't like faces, man. Like he's just doing it just to do it, man. I don't like his attitude, man.
Scheme of things.
This was, yes.
Mankind's babyface turn was pulled off in a way that the WWF or WWE would try to replicate again, but they were nowhere near as successful. Mick Foley's a wonderful storyteller, and the way he can tell a tale while demanding sympathy from the audience is absolutely unmatched. To get the Mankind character some fan support, the WWF and Mick Foley let people see that there was more behind the mask, and there was more to this disfigured character than what meets the eye. There's a human being in there. In a sit-down interview with Jim Ross that went over a few episodes of Raw, Mankind talked about his childhood, how he got teased at school, how he never envisioned himself becoming this Mankind character, and instead he envisioned himself as this heartthrob known as Dude Love. He talked about how his pain and suffering seemed to make people care about him and how death matches made people accept him. And it's all pretty deep when you think about us as people and how we see great things in our future, but things don't turn out the way we expect them to, and how we reach our goals by doing things in unexpected ways.
This is why I'm glad they showed when face turns was relatable. Everybody keeps saying heel turn relatable. Nah, I don't relate to any heel turns, but this, because it shows some face turns, that's definitely relatable.
For Mick Foley though, he had to go through extreme lengths to make people take notice of him. It all started with eating worms in school, and his journey had led him all the way to the WWF, where unfortunately fans were spitting on him and they were saying pretty mean things about Mick. Mankind may have been demented, he may have had violent tendencies, but he was also fragile and he just wanted acceptance. The interviews ended with Jim Ross taking the mandible claw, but when Foley came out to wrestle matches on Raw, fans would now cheer for him. They held up signs for Mankind and they would chant his name, and slowly Foley would get that adulation and acceptance that he'd been looking for ever since he was a young kid. Soon enough, Dude Love would show up, and even Cactus Jack would make appearances on WWF television, and the babyface turn of Mankind would lead to much bigger and better things for Mrs. Foley's baby boy in the WWF.
The title win. Next up we got... Oh, when he turned back. When
Hulk Hogan made his WWF return,
he turned back to the good side, man.
In 2002, he came in as part of the New World Order. Hulk had never wore the black gear in WWF. His legacy in New York was tied up in the yellow and red gear. But the Hulkster's heel turn in WCW had helped reinvigorate his career immensely. And besides,
yes, I know the controversy with him with folks like me, but see the thing about me, I like to separate stuff from wrestling, and this ain't about that. So I'm saying if folks do it. So where I firstly had to, play safe and be that way, but I'm not like that. I mean, I understand he did what he did, but when in wrestling, he put a lot of work in and heart. He put a lot in for wrestling for fans though. So I ain't gonna never deny that at all.
There was a lot more value and a lot more intrigue in bringing in Hogan.
I'm back. Sorry for the freezing. Let's keep going. Like I said, despite his controversy, Hogan did a lot for wrestling.
Hall and Nash is the New World Order. The branding itself was worth a fortune. WWF fans though, and pro wrestling fans in general, never forget we're a loyal breed of fans who follow careers from start to end, and we all know that Hogan's glory days in the World Wrestling Federation were deeply rooted in being the babyface of all babyfaces, the real American, say your prayers and eat your vitamins. Hulk Hogan wrestled The Rock at WrestleMania 18, and it's one of the most entertaining and fascinating WrestleMania matches you'll ever see in your life, and that's thanks to fans remembering the Hulkster. Once upon a time, the Hulkster ruled over WrestleMania. He was in main event after main.
The reason why folks became wrestling fan for sure, man. He helped put in and made in the worldwide media, entertainment, everything, man.
Event during the early days of the biggest show of the year, and fans in the Toronto Sky Dome didn't forget. The heel Hollywood Hogan was cheered from bell to bell. In credit to both Rock and Hogan here, they changed up their match accordingly, from giving the fans more time to pop for the Hulkster to small nuances that fed into the unexpected but truly awesome fan reaction that Hollywood Hogan received on this night. This is one of those things that you just can't manufacture, and it's something you couldn't bank on heading into the match. But Hogan and Rock did a wonderful job of reading the audience and adjusting their match accordingly, turning it into a memorable Mania match for the ages. Yes. Hall and Nash were upset with the handshake after the bout, and this leads to Rock and Hogan fighting off the outsiders. The Rock then gave Hogan the ring to do some celebrating with the fans, brother, and Hulk Hogan would leave the NWO to put on the old red and yellow gear once again.
Next. Oh yeah, something that was very unexpected.
This one doesn't count as a full-on.
Something that was very unexpected, man. One of the dirtiest player of the game coming to face. I mean, well, he has a couple face moments. One in WCW, and then when he first came to WWE as the partner of Vince McMahon. But this one was unexpected as well too, because he was deep in the evolution. But Triple H being Triple H.
Babyface turn, because the guy in question only stayed babyface for one night, but boy did they ever pull this one off well. On the 19th of May 2003 episode of Raw, Steve Austin told Triple H he had to defend the World Heavyweight Championship. Hunter was allowed to choose who his opponent would be for this night, but whoever it was...
So this match, this ain't the one with Hunter being Hunter and did what he did to Ric Flair.
Had to be a former world champion. Austin gave Triple H a few options: Kane, Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, and Kevin Nash. But Austin forgot about the greatest world champion of all time, Nature Boy Ric Flair. Triple H selected his friend Ric Flair, and he fully expected Ric to lay down in the middle of the ring, but that's not what happened. Triple H told Flair that the two of them could have a night off if Ric laid down, plus it's an easy way to get back at Steve Austin. But Ric bumped into Shawn Michaels a little later on, and the Heartbreak Kid reminded Ric Flair about who he was and what he had accomplished. Flair got a little upset when he realized that someone still believed in him. He wanted to know if Michaels truly thought that the Nature Boy could really beat someone like Triple H.
You know, Ric Flair, no matter what he goes through, I must charismatic. He was an emotional wrestler, man. Yeah, I give him props, man. He can sell emotion like crazy, man.
And Shawn says he knows the Nature Boy can do it. All Flair has to do is believe in himself. Before the match, Flair confronted Triple H, and he talked about how it was Hunter who approached Ric months ago and demanded that the old Ric Flair came back. The styling and profiling Slick Rick had lost his confidence, and Hunter wanted it to return. So it's time to find out if the Nature Boy is really back. He needs to test himself against the game. He's not going to lay down in North Carolina of all places, and he warns Triple H to be at his best.
Whole time, though you just don't feel into it. But sometimes they let it happen. Hometown will get you all mad baby reflection regardless of what you are at times.
What we end up getting is a very emotional match where Slick Rick's the babyface for one night only, and it feels like a big deal. Yep. Jim Ross can't even sit down during the entrances. The crowd's 100% behind Ric Flair, and Slick Rick turned back the clock to do some naching with his friend in the middle of the ring. Jim Ross's commentary is excellent in this match, as he really sells the fact that Ric Flair could become the World Heavyweight Champion once again when this one's all said and done. But unfortunately, Rick ends up taking the loss after Triple H hits him with a pedigree. The following week, Flair teamed up with Shawn Michaels to take on Triple H in a handicap match, and we all found out that Flair and Hunter were still tight when Flair attacked Shawn. That Triple H versus Ric Flair match, though, is really something else. Raw matches that ride on nothing but pure emotion are few and far between, so check this one out if you get a chance.
Who we got next? Oh yeah, when he came back to Elizabeth.
It was Randy's relationship with Miss Elizabeth that made him turn heel, and it was Randy's relationship with Miss Elizabeth that would eventually turn him back to a babyface. After the Megapowers exploded, Macho would replace Liz with Sensational Sherry, and another emotional moment came at WrestleMania 7 when the Macho Man faced the Ultimate Warrior in a retirement match. The loser would have to say goodbye to WWF for good, and after 20 minutes of action and after stealing the show in the LA Memorial Sports Arena, the Macho Man was defeated by the Warrior. Sherry attacked the Macho Man during his darkest moment in the WWF, and Liz couldn't sit in the crowd and watch it any longer. She ran to the ring, she fought off Sherry, and when the Macho Man embraced Miss Elizabeth, the crowd went absolutely crazy, and the Macho Man turned babyface once again. Of course, Macho didn't fully retire from in-ring competition, but the WWF created what could have been a fulfilling end to the Macho Man's WWF story if he really did retire at Mania 7. This one also gives us a great example of how popular Miss Elizabeth was, and if you maybe enjoyed the heel Macho King stuff a little more than Savage's work as a good guy, you still can't say that this babyface turn at WrestleMania 7 wasn't awesome. People were legitimately crying in the audience, and that's the kind of thing you just can't script, unless you pay for plants, of course.
What's next? Oh, yes! I always called
Not
it.
one that many people talk about, but I thought this was done.
I'm gonna talk about this. Yes, I always called about this. The perfect face turn right here. Yes. Yes. The perfect face turn. I was surprised that this is on here, but not many people talk about the perfect face turn. Yes.
Not one that many people talk about, but I thought this was done pretty well.
Yes.
And more or less.
It was done well, too. The way they did it on Prime, it was like a show like you would expect stuff like that happen on their little talk show. The Prime, Prime Time, you would not expect stuff like that to happen. And the way they did it and everything was, like I said, perfect. Like I said, the perfect face turn indeed.
A whole episode of Primetime was dedicated to Mr. Perfect's face turn. It wasn't only Kurt Hennig who made this good, though. You also have to give credit to Bobby.
Yeah, Heenan sold this as well, too.
The Brain Heenan. Perfect had aligned himself with Ric Flair as his executive consultant, and Perfect had pretty much backed up anything Flair did in 1992. Razor Ramon would also become associated with Ric Flair, and these two were scheduled to take on the Macho Man Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior at Survivor Series 1992. But just before that match could take place, the Warrior got released. The WWF.
Oh man, again. Well, it's funny this happened twice in a row, twice again, because the first time he this situation right here, and then later on he got released whatever before another pay-per-view with when Ahmed Johnson and Shawn Michaels were supposed to go against Kim Cornette, and he got released then, and then replaced him with Psycho Sid. But wow, it was another face turn right there. Oh, crazy! So it's crazy that every time every Ultimate Warrior releases turns to a babyface turn for a former heel. Interesting, right?
Obviously needed a replacement, and the WWF decided to turn Perfect against Flair, Ramon, and Heenan at the very last minute. So this was a babyface turn that wasn't originally planned. On the November 16th, 1992 episode of Primetime, Bobby Heenan and Mr. Perfect laughed at the fact that Randy Savage didn't have a tag team partner anymore for this upcoming Survivor Series match. But Savage says he's actually got a replacement in mind, a guy who Savage doesn't even like, but a guy who Randy wants to take a chance with. He could be the perfect tag team partner. The guys on Primetime put two and two together, and Kurt laughs at the prospect. Heenan thinks it's funny when Macho Man says the company Perfect hangs around with are holding him back, and for a moment you can see Mr. Perfect actually considering Macho's offer. Randy would play it up by saying Perfect needs to take this gut check and think for himself, but the initial offer gets laughed off and Primetime continues. Mr. Perfect then gets a phone call, and Bobby Heenan wants to know who's calling in. Whoever it is, they've got Perfect's attention. Bobby makes a few mistakes next when he highlights Hennig's abilities as a broadcaster instead of his abilities as a great pro wrestler. And then Razor Ramon and Ric Flair join the broadcast, and they make things even worse. Flair says Rick does the wrestling while Flair does the consulting. They're a great team as they are, but again, you can see that Perfect isn't too enamored with what he's hearing.
I think even say Rick does the wrestling while Heenan does the consulting.
Bobby thinks it was Flair who called Perfect earlier on in the show, but Rick says it wasn't the Nature Boy, so it had to be Macho. The other guys on Primetime then point out that Heenan's calling the shots here, and Perfect isn't allowed to make his own decisions. Perfect has to keep defending himself, and it's clear he's getting fed up with the lack of respect he's receiving from the guys that he thought were his friends. Heenan says there's no reason for Kurt to get in the ring, and long story short,
like
Perfect...
Watch that clip, the whole segment. It's on YouTube. Why is that 7? It's awesome, like I said, perfect face turn.
Gets fed up again and he tells Macho he's going to consider the offer. Heenan loses it. Flair and Ramon can't believe what they're hearing, and it all boils over when Heenan tells Perfect he has to stay in Flair's shadow, and Perfect has to remember that Bobby Heenan signs the checks. Perfect then accepts Randy Savage's offer. Heenan ends up slapping him across the face, and when Perfect grabs Heenan by the tie, the brain instantly shows regret and he gets on his knees to beg for forgiveness. Perfect pours a pitcher of water over Heenan's head while calling him
despite him being the greatest hill manager of all time, I'm saying that because I don't roll the hills, Heenan know how to perform. I will say that. He knew how to perform. He definitely knew how to perform. God rest his soul, as well as Perfect as well too, and of course Scott Hall and Randy Savage. But he knew how to perform, man. For real, he did.
A wet weasel, and Perfect would go on to tag up with Macho at the 1992 Survivor Series. It's great because it spanned across a whole episode of prime time, and it's great too because it's another example of WWF turning a negative into a positive. If Warrior hadn't gotten himself fired, then we never would have seen this highly entertaining face turn.
Here we go. Who's next? Ah, yes! I knew what I wanted to do for a long time.
This one was a slow build, but it's a fine example of how to do the slow build properly. The payoff was excellent and it created a new WrestleMania main eventer. Batista was part of Evolution and the group had been having some issues. Randy Orton was kicked out after he won the world title. That was a title that Triple H felt belonged to the game and only the game. And then Triple H would start to
damn Reign Terror, which we're dealing with right now. Well, we got done one Reign Taylor, even though fortunately she got released afterward because of a more fortunate situation. Shout out to Mandy Rose regardless. Hopefully everything works out, but hopefully some other Reign Taylor ends that's be the cheat line.
Taking advantage of Dave Batista while also thinking the Animal had no idea what was going on. Batista knew what Triple H was up to, but he decided to play the game for a little longer and lure Triple H in with a false sense of security. At the 2005 New Year's Revolution Elimination Chamber match, Triple H had the opportunity to save Batista from getting eliminated, but he let him get pinned instead. Afterwards, Triple H wanted Dave to give up his spot in the Royal Rumble match and instead look out for Triple H and his world title match against Randy Orton, but Dave wasn't having none of it, and the big man ended up winning the Royal Rumble match. Batista had a choice to make. He could head over to SmackDown and challenge JBL for the WWE Championship, or he could stay on Raw and face the game for the World Heavyweight Championship. On the night where Batista was scheduled to make his decision, he overheard Triple H and Ric Flair talking a little shit about the Animal, and this just solidified Dave's decision. He went to the ring and he swerved Triple H into thinking he was going to go to SmackDown. When Batista's thumbs up turned to a thumbs down, the crowd went crazy, and just like that, WWE had a new top babyface. Triple H gets put through a table, Evolution's finally ended, and Batista would go on to WrestleMania 21 to win the World Heavyweight Championship.
Alright, who's next? Yes. When he first became the fan favorite phenom. Oh yeah.
This one ties into Macho Man's face turn too. Undertaker and Jake Roberts were all buddy-buddy, and these two would make Liz and Macho's wedding reception a living nightmare when they gave Liz a snake as a wedding gift. The Undertaker also knocked Macho Man out with the urn, so these two didn't mind stooping pretty low to get one over on their opponents. On the February 15th, 1992 episode of Superstars, though, The Undertaker had a change of heart and he would actually assist Liz and Macho when Jake Roberts planned an attack. Macho and Liz were coming back through the curtain, but Jake was waiting with a steel chair. Jake said he didn't care if he hit Macho or Liz, just as long as he hit one of them. The two walked through the curtain, Roberts goes to swing the chair, but The Undertaker stops him, and this allows Randy to take out Jake. This is pretty significant because it would begin a very successful babyface run for The Undertaker, and he wouldn't turn heel again until late 1998. The Dead Man would become one of WWF's most popular characters, and today he's considered an absolute legend of the company. And this moment here was when fans were able to cheer for The Undertaker as he went on his first babyface run. Undertaker stopping Jake led to the two having a match at WrestleMania 8. There's a story about how that match played out, but Taker was able to win his second WrestleMania match here, and we all know how Taker would fare in the WrestleMania events that followed.
What we got next? Oh! Set up Popeye.
DDP's face turn in WCW wasn't something that just happened after one show, although there was a moment that solidified where he stood. Before the NWO came along and during the first few months of the faction's existence, Dallas was involved in rivalries that centered around the Diamond Doll Kimberly. At World War III 1995, Page was defeated by Johnny B. Bad and Kimberly was supposed to become Johnny's full-time manager. And when Johnny left to join WWF, Kimberly made quite the decision when she sided with the Booty Man, becoming the Booty Babe. And
I forgot my man Bruce BK was called the Booty Man at one point. Lord.
Even Dallas looking like a chump. Page went on to Slamboree 1996 where he won the Battle Bowl ring and he got tied up in feuds with Eddie Guerrero and Jim Duggan. But then Scott Hall and Kevin Nash came over with a ton of hype behind them, and Page got the opportunity to do something with the Outsiders that would make him one of WCW's biggest fan favourites. Page had history with Hall and Nash, and the Outsiders were more than happy to give Dallas a moment on Nitro that would steer...
In case you wondering what he mean by that, before that, he used to be a man. Before he was a wrestler, he was a manager first, and one of the folks I think he managed either one though. He was known as Diamond Dallas Page, and then and Razor was known as the Big Stud. Scott Hall was known as Big Stud, and then Big Stud and Vinny Vegas was tag team as well too. And I think he managed both of them at one point, if I can recall. I could be wrong, but yeah, before he became a wrestler himself though. And think about it. Always give props to DDP himself, man, because the age he started in pro wrestling, and he became a legend still.
DDP's career in a new direction. The Outsiders tried to recruit DDP week after week and Dallas wouldn't give a straight answer. But on the 13th of January 1997 episode of Nitro, DDP would finally let the Outsiders and the fans know his decision. DDP put an NWO shirt on. Everyone thought Page had joined up with the boys, but then Dallas dropped Scott Hall with a diamond cutter and sends Big Kev to the outside of the ring. The place absolutely erupted when this went down, and from this moment, Dallas was a made man in WCW after being there for so many years. This was another slow build, and it did seem like DDP was on a babyface path in the run-up to this moment, but the turn was given a ton of impact when Dallas pulled off the cutter, and from this point on, the only way was up for Diamond Dallas Page.
Alright, who's next? Yes, RPA Scott, but yes.
I thought Razor Ramon's...
And like this, I know he came in as a bad guy, and he's like one of the first one to be an anti-hero when he turned face, but the fact that he did a lot of better things as a face, including winning championship and everything, man.
Babyface turn was handled quite well, and it's another case of WWF creating a very popular babyface from a guy who had also worked very well as a heel. It's been said that the decision to turn Razor happened after his WrestleMania 9 match with Bob Backlund. This was one of those early examples of the fans cheering for the villain while more or less dismissing the babyface, but you can't really blame fans here.
Guess we had a little bit of early, what I call the early bizarre world days of wrestling fans back then.
Either Backlund just didn't appeal to fans of this era as a good guy.
Yeah, and that's probably why he ended up turning heel later, like a crazy heel later on. Yep.
The audience got behind Razor, who was just a million times cooler than what Bob could ever hope to be. The Lightning Kid, or the Kamikaze Kid, Cannonball Kid, or 1-2-3 Kid, whatever you want, came into WWF shortly after Mania 9, and he was booked as a job guy. On an episode of Raw, though, the Kid got a major upset win over the villainous Razor Ramon, and Razor couldn't believe it. A guy like the 1-2-3 Kid shouldn't be getting wins over someone like Razor Ramon. This played out really well due to the nature of WWF programming at the time. Squash matches were frequent, and fans would fully expect these matches to play out as intended. The big star defeats the random newcomer, and then you wonder if that newcomer would ever be seen again. This time though, the job guy beat the big star, and in doing so, the job guy became part of regular WWF programming. Let it be known though that Sean Waltman had quite a lot of experience away from WWF at this point. His matches against Jerry Lynn in Minneapolis, Dallas, and even Japan are still very much worth checking out today. But casual WWF fans didn't know anything about this, of course, and the Kid was presented as a young wrestler who really didn't have a hope in hell of beating Razor Ramon.
That's a lot of folks with jobbers like that, even in jobbers nowadays. Well, too, some of them became known wrestlers because Karrion Kross was a jobber against was going to be a job against Ascension, but then
after the big victory, Razor would try to entice Kid back into the ring for another match, even putting up a hefty sum of money to make the match happen. Kid would end up stealing the money, and this would lead to Money Incorporated mocking the bad guy. Ted DiBiase and IRS made fun of Razor, and it was through Money Inc. that Razor turned babyface. When the bad guy attacked these two, the fans erupted, and Razor would end up becoming very good friends with the 1, 2, 3 Kid, both on screen and off screen. The face turn was very effective, and as mentioned, Razor Ramon would become one of WWF's most popular superstars throughout the new generation era.
R.I.P. Scott Hall. We got next. Yes! 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 This is one, I think they're going to show down the one, but this is one was when the face turn happened. Freedom! I was free to root for this man. This is one. The other one was John Cena, man. Cause I thought he was gonna be on there, but they're only doing Steve Austin. But it's cool, yes. And it will be the same. And the most recent one that was Freedom was the Acclaim, because everyone loved the Acclaim, man. And it was somebody else turned face recently. I was so happy about, like, for real. Well, Seth kind of was now, but. He said he never gonna do it, but if to try to become Roman again, I will be. Then I would acknowledge him. Until then, anyway. But yes,
this is a bit of an odd one because
another one I'm looking for. The other two that I wanted to see a face turn from is Jade and Carmella Hayes.
Stone Cold did not change his character after the WWF started putting him against heels, but it shows us how insanely popular Stone Cold could be just by being himself. We all point to WrestleMania 13 and the big submission match.
Hopefully, you have the part 2 of this because they need to have Rock. You see, you have Rock and Cena on here as well too. And some others.
Is the turning point for Stone Cold, and indeed it was. It was here where the WWF gave fans a reason to cheer for Stone Cold after he wouldn't give up and he left the arena on his own accord. But that path was already laid out for Stone Cold in the weeks leading up to WrestleMania. Bret was gonna turn heel. If you listen to Bret's promos and if you listen to how Vince McMahon would steer the public's perception of both men in the run-up to WrestleMania on commentary, then you could take a well-educated guess that Stone Cold was going to get a big push and Bret was going to turn to the dark side. WrestleMania 13 though was the big night when the roles got reversed and the WWF embraced that grey area where not everything needs to be so cut and dry. Fans that cheered for Bret during the entrances booed him on his way out, and those same fans cheered when Austin refused help after the bout and he walked back to the locker room all on his own. Austin did not change on this evening, and he didn't change for the months and even years that followed WrestleMania 13. It didn't matter to Stone Cold if you were a good guy or a bad guy, you'd take a stunner either way. But Austin was put against
KO showing that as well too. When he knew his face, he gave a lot of stunner. He had to because the whole thing with Ezekiel. It was probably going to lead to Elias turning heel against him, but that's definite.
Company heels, and he did show more of his personality once the double turn at WrestleMania happened. And there's absolutely no point in talking about how successful he would become because you guys know the story inside out. This is a great one to discuss though because of how organic it all was, and it's also worth studying because Austin didn't turn into a good guy in the conventional manner. One of the great things about Stone Cold was how raw and how real he was, and the fans getting behind Stone Cold in 1997 and beyond was also very, very real.
Alright, cool. Oh, we got more.
That'll do it for this one, and hopefully there were a few turns in here that you didn't expect. Some of these have been well covered in the past, and it's difficult to get away from the more famous babyface turns, but again, let's keep it going in the comment section, and let me know some of your all-time favourite babyface turns. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. As always, thank you very much for watching, and take care.
I feel like for the Flair one, in my eyes, I feel like for the Flair one, he should have put the one. Are they gonna show it? Was just on? Hey. For the Flair one, in my eyes, opinion, he should have did the one when Triple H hit him though. That well then again, I guess it wasn't like unexpected. That was like a side. It was like you feel bad for Ric Flair and everything. But yeah, it's this one he should. I think he should have the Rock when he turned face, as well as definitely John Cena as well too. No, and the Shield. Yes, they're another one. They was in so cool. I thought they was kind of going to turn face a little bit when they was going against the Riots, but they kept them healing away with the authority. But when they turned, we'll call it the literal face turn. Ha ha ha! Yes, Yes, loved it. And some other face turns that's happened as well too. But other than that, that should be on there. Hopefully do a part 2 or whatever. I mean, I doubt it because kind of sound like he don't like faces either, man. But anyway, if you like my reaction, a man who loves and adores and show and have the ultimate respect and love for faces, like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel. The ultimate babyface of one of the ultimate babyfaces of YouTube. The other one's the boy, my good friend J Rock, the great one. You know what I'm saying? As well as, Ross. I say he's a tweener. He's a good face, but he's a tweener. It depends. You know what I'm saying. But other than that, if you like my reaction, like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's your boy T signing off. One love.